Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the virtual statewide convening of partners for the Pathways to Career Opportunities Initiative. I'm Aaron Fichtner, president of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and it is my honor to welcome all of you today to join with us in this really important event. I am honored to be here with our partners from NJBIA, the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. I'd like to introduce their president and CEO, Michelle Siekerka, who's been an incredible leader in New Jersey on behalf of the business community and a really important partner in the area of workforce development and education. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Aaron. Such a pleasure to be here this morning. This is going to be a fantastic program. You know, the title today says Industry and Education Converge on Workforce Innovation. I'm here to converge. We are here to converge. This has been in the making, and the timing couldn't be any better with the unprecedented hiring and retention crisis we're experiencing here in New Jersey, as well as, frankly, across the country, but particularly here in New Jersey, where our sights and our focus are always set. What a tremendous and extraordinary opportunity to bring together all the partners that you see here today. And this doesn't happen easily. I want to commend the Council of Community Colleges, and I want to thank them for their unprecedented partnership with NJBIA and all of our academic institutions, along with our members who have come to the forefront. Over the past few years, so much work has taken place behind the scenes to allow us to come together today to converge. So I'm going to leave the details to Chrissy and Aaron. I'm here this morning to just build some great hype and momentum. I know I'm excited. You should all be excited. Let's get a whoop whoop going, because New Jersey's going to lead like nobody when it comes to workforce development and innovation. Aaron, back to you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And it is so exciting to be here with people from all over the state, from the business community, from community-based organizations, from community colleges, from education, and to join Michelle with you at NJBIA and your team to really come together in a new way to make sure that we're building pathways to economic opportunity, and we're building the most skilled, productive, innovative workforce in the country to drive economic growth. I'd like to introduce Chrissy Butius, who is the Chief Government Affairs Officer at NJBIA, who's an incredible partner in this work, to say a few words of welcome and introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Michelle, for the introduction as well. I have the pleasure of working with Aaron and team on this really exciting initiative to really bring the business community to the forefront of the conversation about how do we create the workforce of not only today, but of the future. And this collaboration is unprecedented, and we are very excited about the opportunity to bring all of our stakeholders here together, from academia, the business community, our labor partners, and also our policymakers, to have this really robust discussion about how do we make sure that that workforce is skilled for all of the future needs of our employers. And when we have a strong workforce, we have a strong economy, and we're really excited about this collaboration moving forward.
Thank you, Chrissy. So on behalf of New Jersey's 18 community colleges, I'm honored to be able to say that we are committed to working with all of you to seize this moment to build expansive, equitable career pathways for more people. We cannot do this work alone, and all of your involvement is incredibly important. I'd like to start with a couple of acknowledgments, and then we're going to go to our amazing kickoff panel to really frame this work. First, I'd like to thank the legislature and Governor Murphy and his administration for their support of this initiative. We are working closely with support from the state budget and closely with the administration to make sure that all of this work is aligned with broader state policy and priorities. I want to thank and acknowledge a few of our community college leaders who are here with us today. First, Mary Zimmerman, who's chair of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges. Mary is an incredible leader, and she's chair of the Board of Governors of Union County College. So thank you, Mary, for your leadership and for being here. I'd like to acknowledge President Borden from Camden County College. We'll hear from him later. President Borden is the chair of the Community College Presidents this year. And I'd like to acknowledge President Mike McDonough of Raritan Valley Community College. President McDonough chairs our Workforce Development Consortium and has been an incredible leader in the vision that has gotten us to this day. we're going to hear today from a wide variety of industry leaders, both in a plenary session and then in industry-specific breakouts. But we need to hear from all of you as well. And so I would encourage all of you to be active in the chat, to provide your comments and thoughts and suggestions. As you hear comments made by panelists, by presenters, please be heard in the chat. Also, please feel free to post on social media using the hashtag NJPathways and let your voice be heard as well. This is the beginning of what needs to be and what will be a robust dialogue of all of us working together to make sure that we're creating the ecosystem that prepares people for the jobs of the future. So please do not be shy, put comments, thoughts in the chat, and be part of this important conversation. Unfortunately, we cannot be all together in person. We hope that that will happen someday soon, but we are hoping to use technology to help bring us together as well. So I am really excited that we are joined today by 4 really important leaders, visionary leaders, that represent the 4 key industries that really undergird this entire initiative. So the first panel is really an exploration of the changing economy and what it means for education and what we need to do to create an innovative workforce. We are joined today, like I said, by 4 really exciting leaders with very different and important perspectives. Kathy Bennett is president and CEO of the New Jersey Hospital Association. I had the honor of serving with Kathy in the cabinet when she was Secretary of Health, Commissioner of Health. And Kathy is an incredible voice for all of our healthcare system and for our hospitals in particular. We're joined also by Aaron Price, who's president and CEO of Tech United in New Jersey. Tech United has been an important entity that brings together entrepreneurs and forward-thinking technology thinkers to help build a robust entrepreneurial space of technology in New Jersey. And we're happy that Aaron is with us today. We're also joined by Clint Wallace. Clint is the Senior Vice President of Human Resources North America. Clint is a partner with Raritan Valley Community College and a really bright and interesting thinker on what is going on in the global economy, helping to lead a very important international company with very strong New Jersey roots. And finally, we're joined by Bernie Corrigan, president and business officer of IBEW Local 102, and been a really important voice in the organized labor community and a really important thinker in the changing needs in his important industry. So thank you to and with this and most foundational question for our panelists, which is that the pandemic really has accelerated the pace of change in the economy. And I wanted to start giving each of you a chance to introduce yourselves and then to highlight a couple of significant transformations that are going on in your industry that we all should be aware of that are affecting the skills that are needed by employers in your industry. And so let me start with Kathy Bennett, and then we'll go around. Kathy, welcome. Thanks for being with us. I think we need to unmute. There you are, Kathy.
There you go. I was waiting for the host to give me that access. Hey, good morning, everybody. Appreciate the introduction, and thank you so much, Aaron and Michelle, for bringing together this group and have this conversation today. I think we all are probably feeling the same thing. At this point, like no other, we really do need to talk about workforce. And I know representing who I do, which are the healthcare continuum in New Jersey as the president and CEO of NJHA, that, this has been maybe one of the seminal points for our workforce, particularly in healthcare. We're into our second year of a pandemic. We've just gone through and hopefully peaked with the newest surge of COVID. We have a workforce that is weary, a workforce that is questioning, where's the commitment, from all others in maintaining health and wellness. And a workforce that every single day shows up, gives it their all with caring, compassion, and science to help heal those in New Jersey that come across their doors. And we've seen a lot of the great work that they've done. So, we've been talking a lot about what has the pandemic done? How has it changed how we're thinking about healthcare of the future? And I've got to say, whether it was the pandemic or, boomer population that's aging, or rapidly changing consumer expectations, or this shift that we've had towards something in healthcare we call value-based care, we know that we need new skills, we need new roles, and we need a new type of interaction that happens between healthcare staff and the people and communities that they serve. So new ways to work, driving innovation and experimentation, those two things, they're going to permeate clinical and non-healthcare. And healthcare workforce is different from our workforce right now. So I've got a couple examples that I want to give. One is that we definitely have had a move, particularly, I think driven by this pandemic, to care outside of the office. It's driven by convenience for consumers, and it's a move towards less costly sites of service. So you've seen, just this exponential growth in telehealth, for example, and that requires an entirely new set of skills to deliver care across different settings. So healthcare providers are going to need to operate in non-traditional locations, and they're going to absolutely have to use technology to access and integrate care. Whether we're looking at, your Apple Watch, your Fitbit, whether you have your pulse ox at home, a whole host of things that you can be doing with technology, integrating back into a telehealth setting. We need to focus on how to engage patients in unique ways so that the consumer expectations that are evolving, they're met. Another thing that I'm looking at as well is we recognize, and this is something that I know Aaron and I were working on years ago and we continue to work on, how do we take a more holistic view of consumers and patients? That demands new types of roles. So care teams are going to require social workers, population health managers, nutritionists, behavioral health, things that aren't common across the healthcare landscape when we're talking about the delivery of healthcare itself. We're talking about integrating those and moving into team relationships. So further coordination, I think, is going to be really, key. And then, finally, as I start to think about this, it's also scientific advances that have been happening, whether it's in genomics or behavioral health sciences. We know that there's a lot of unknowns and that there's no workforce supply model for it as yet. But as we shift from what is a reactive to preventative interventions, or from an acute into an ambulatory care system, we know that new roles are going to evolve. We've seen the emergence of the study of epigenetics, and we know that we're going to look at epigenetic counselors, and that they're going to become mainstream. And we know that that requires another entirely different set of skills. So a lot coming down the pipe, I think a lot rapidly changing, and this happening in our near and in the non too far.
Kate, thank you very much for being here and for helping setting the stage. Obviously, your hospitals have been on the front lines during this pandemic, and thank you for your leadership. I want to go to Clint next. We've long had a history, as we know, as a research and innovation state, and the pharmaceutical and medical device industry has always been at the forefront of that. Clint, as a leader in a global company with roots in New Jersey, please introduce yourself and what do you see on the horizon, the transformations that are going on in your company that are affecting your workforce needs.
So thank you, Aaron, and good morning, everyone. I'm Clint Wallace. I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be part of the discussion this morning. For us, it's a couple things. I think, we start off with regards to how we work has been impacted. Leveraging technology to be able to stay connected with things like Zoom and Teams has been, and where we work, right? So for us, we've embraced this hybrid concept of folks will want to work remotely and folks will want to come to the workplace as appropriate. And we think coming to the workplace should be around collaboration and innovation with colleagues. The pandemic has definitely accelerated a lot of things. If I think about our sales teams, for example, our sales teams typically would engage clinicians in person at their facility, and then literally overnight, there was no playbook about how do you engage physicians in a COVID confined environment. So we had to leverage digital to engage those clinicians. We had to kind of unleash our minds around past practices and embrace new practices and educate and teach, because this was also new for clinicians as well. And I'm here to say that, the engagement with clinicians through digital means have been much more meaningful than how they've been in the past. And so we're now figuring out how we incorporate that going forward as we get back to some semblance of new normal. Another example is in our digital manufacturing facility in Framingham, Massachusetts, which received Facility of the Future Award in 2020 from the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering, highlighting Sanofi as a game changer for the future. And, the facility opened in 2019, being one of its kind worldwide, to put Sanofi in the forefront of biomanufacturing, because the whole industrial process is digitized, it's paperless, and it's enabled us to be 80 times more productive than a traditional factory. It can make medicines in less time for twice the number of patients, all within a small environmental footprint. So for us, I would say in the office side and in the manufacturing side, and even for our field sales force, transformation has happened, and has happened with great results.
Thank you, Clint. Appreciate your comments and you being here with us today. I'd like to go to Bernie Corrigan. Bernie, you obviously work on the front lines of a lot of transformation in the construction and utilities energy industry. What are you seeing on the ground in terms of transformations that are affecting the workplace?
Thanks, Aaron, and good morning, everyone. Just a brief introduction first. I'm Bernie Corrigan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers in Local 102. We represent about 3,000 members and 250 of our partner businesses that have contractors licenses throughout the state of New Jersey. From our HR side, we manage over $1 billion in funds between our defined benefit, our defined contribution, and our welfare funds. But most importantly here, we invest $2.8 million a year into the training of our members to make them more agile, because construction at its core is very cyclical and can't always be a full-time job. I hate to say that, but that's the reality of the industry. My previous two colleagues spoke about how much the pandemic affected them. It did for us a little bit on the office side, but the biggest core of our industry were frontline essential workers that had to go out and had to build the job. So that part of it didn't change too much. Obviously, kind of like Clint said, the way they work was a little bit different, maybe the precautions, those sort of things, but the actual skill set didn't change too much. And then some of the other things in our industry that you might think come to the forefront, solar energy, electric cars, there's some new certificates out regarding that, the electric vehicle infrastructure training program. That's a certificate out there that licensed electricians go out to get certified to do that work. But again, those things are kind of at the core of what electricians always did. The biggest change I saw from a skill set is CAD and BIM. And even more so, not on the office side, it is now transitioned to the field, where it used to be just dedicated to the office side. More and more electricians in the field are not using blueprints anymore. They have an iPad and the prints are on that. So much so that we used to offer it as a continuing education course. I'm now talking with my committee about making that a permanent part of the apprenticeship program, that CAD and BIM and AccuBid for estimating, those sort of computer programs, basically to make our membership more agile so they can segue to different parts of the industry. So that's the biggest change I see, Aaron.
Great. Thank you, Bernie. And thank you for being here. And clearly, the ecosystem of how we prepare and educate workers includes high schools, community colleges, four-year colleges, labor unions, community-based organizations. So we're glad that you're a part of this effort. Finally, I'd like to turn to Aaron Price, who is with Tech United New Jersey and has been, I know, Aaron, you've been doing a lot of frontline thinking about the changing tech economy and how we build that ecosystem of entrepreneurship and job growth. What are you seeing in the economy that makes you think about changing workforce needs?
Thank you, Aaron, and everyone for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. in many ways, it's great to go last year because everyone's mentioned an element of what we believe at Tech United, which is every company is a tech company in some way, whether the company itself is a tech company or they're tech enabled. And so the way we see it is it's how we work and then where we work. So I'll go, just to use Bernie's example, to talk about electricians in the field being tech enabled, that's how they stay relevant. And it applies to every single one of these industries. We're working with Robert Wood Johnson about how tech plays a role in delivering healthcare, as Kate brought up, and telehealth obviously is where the world is going and where we've been and where I think we're staying. So we see a few areas of change and see how technology plays a role across all industries. And, on top of that, when you add the element of entrepreneurship, surveys generally show somewhere between 60 to 80% of graduates are interested in starting their own business. So they're interested in entrepreneurship in some capacity. And so when I think about a workforce development and how that plays a role in the future of the workforce, I think we need to make sure that our industries are enabling that kind of an environment to happen within their companies, whether the person starts a company on their own or that there's a culture that allows them to take risks, to start things and to fail. And I think that's a really important part of the process of training people that it's okay to take steps, to learn how to do things with technology and to make mistakes along the way. And that's okay behavior. So we tend to think about, connectivity, capital, and culture. I just talked about the culture piece. Connectivity, there's an issue outside of this conversation about the infrastructure needs of New Jersey and how we can have a significant advantage with very, very strong infrastructure, in particular 5G, if some people are paying attention to that space and what's going on there. But we think that drives not just great connectivity, but also equitable solutions so that people can build on the network. Like that's, Netflix came out of the connectivity evolution. And we think that there's quite a bit of advancement that can happen there if people understand the tools and the how they can build upon those things and how they play a role into their everyday workplace. And so, then the idea around enablement and how we work, 75% of people want to stay remote in some capacity, about 40% of people want to stay remote forever. And so again, if we think about, where is this workforce? How do we empower them? Well, we need to make sure they're comfortable on Zoom. We need to make sure that they're comfortable on mobile, that they can build on these platforms, that they will thrive in these environments if they excel with the tools. So I'm thinking about the base level tools, but as you get more and more advanced, we see every single industry being disrupted by technology. And the more we can empower, people in the workforce to take advantage of this technology, we think that there'll be, maximum chance of success in their careers, whether they start their own business or work within another entity. So I'd also point out, at least I'm paying attention to the chat. I would guess the other panelists are as well, and I very much welcome questions and comments there if anyone has any.
Right, thank you, Aaron. I think all of our panelists, all of you highlighted a number of really important themes that I think are going to be part of this discussion today and this entire initiative. So I'll turn it over to Chrissy for the next question.
Thank you, Aaron. And again, thank you everyone for joining us here today. We're going to have a more global conversation later on in the convening here today in specific industries, and NJBIA through our post-secondary task force and several of the reports that we issued really focused on the workforce needs of the future. And we heard from our employers that not only do we need those career specific skills, but we also need those essential skills like problem solving, communication, teamwork. And we don't see that changing even in this COVID environment and moving, forward as well. Can you help us set the stage today, because we have so many stakeholders on the line, including our academic partners, about what do you see as those changing needs by the employer community, including both our essential skills, but also some of the career specific skills that are needed? So why don't we start with Kathy again?
Hi there. And Chrissy, it's good to hear your voice again. And I want to thank you for your partnership as we've been tackling what have been, a series of workforce issues and supply chain issues throughout this entire pandemic. And you've been a tremendous assistance to us at the Hospital Association and for the entire continuum of care. So just wanted to acknowledge that. And I think like you're raising some of, what we're beginning to see, no matter what, collaboration, communication, teamwork, active listening, participatory listening. Those are all going to continue to be some key skills that we need. But some of the other things we're seeing as the system continues to evolve is that non-clinical positions are going to be as crucial to support and to empower patients so that they're making better decisions about their health and ultimately improving it. So, what we're seeing is that as the healthcare industry is shifting, and it's shifting from, this system that's always been about sort of sick care and into a system that's focused on prevention and wellness, that providers are taking a much more comprehensive approach to meeting patient needs. And that includes that there's now social work assistance, there's behavioral health help, there's nutritional advice. You'll see a lot of our members starting to partner in new ways with community organizations and recognize that if we're going to advance the health and wellness of all of New Jersey, that it means that we've got to partner in new ways. And so that comes back to that teamwork piece, which becomes so critical because hospitals and others in the continuum, whether it's our rehabs or our long-term care side, we all recognize that we have a role to play, but our role could be as quarterback, it could be as a team member on a broader set of with a broader set of partners. And the reason for it is we're all driving towards the same thing: very equitable, accessible care, very equitable and accessible situations that bring people to optimal health. And that means that we've got to be thinking not just about what we do certainly every single day, the science of healthcare, using concepts of biology, epidemiology, physiology in the care of our patients. Whether or not we continue to see the different occupational therapists, for example, or physical therapists, becoming more and more integrated into what we do. We see that science is alive, it's well in our field, and that's going to continue to be critical for an underpinning in a career in healthcare. But a career in healthcare, again, it's not just about clinical, it's going to be about that non-clinical. And that's the art side of healthcare. We always say it's a science and an art. That art is, working with health coaches, dietitians, nutritionists, community health workers, doulas. I mean, some of these terms were really new to us 5 years ago, and I take a look at how they've been incorporated into a team base of care. And we now see that it's not, in a very familiar, top-down model, but it's much more, I'd say, rounding centric. And the reason for it is that we see that, as we try to take care of the whole person, that at different points, somebody's going to step forward to lead the team to address whatever the most important need at that point in time is. And underpinning all this is that growing role of data analytics, data sharing, and thinking through what are the process improvements that we need? What are the information sharing needs? What are the types of reports? I don't think anybody wants to see, 1,000 more alerts kick off in healthcare, but we do want to get better about mastering the information and sharing it more holistically about individuals. And so that also means that IT and data analytics experience are going to be key as we move forward.
Thank you, Kathy. We'll turn it over to Clint.
So thank you. So for us, look, companies often focus on the hard skills, but soft skills also matter too. And in our company, as we look at how we evaluate performance, the what and the how are equal to each other. We don't care if you are able to achieve or overachieve on what you do. If you leave a weight behind you, you still will be rated poorly because both are equal. And so, look, whether you work for a not-for-profit or a for-profit business like ours, the goal is the same: delighting the customer. And soft skills often get missed as being equally important. So we're putting a big emphasis on it. Things like inclusiveness, valuing the different perspectives that you get from a team environment, both from your colleagues that are based globally or colleagues based locally, or our partners, our third-party partners that enable us every day. We want clear thinkers, people who can take the most complex things and distill them into a level in which they can communicate them clearly and effectively to others. We're critical thinkers, people who can factor in what I call first tier, second tier implications to their thinking and actions. And so to enable them to make the right decision, take the right call. We want enterprise thinkers, people that think beyond just the perimeter in which they're responsible for, but we want people that will put the interest of the broader organization above their own or just within their respective department. And certainly we want people to influence, right? We want people to influence with diplomacy and tact, not with brawn and rigor. And we need to be sure that, the soft skills, the ask I have here is definitely incorporated into college curriculums. It's like a muscle that people have to exercise over and over and over in order to build strength. And when we're building pathways to careers, we can't lose the benefits of the liberal arts system. We have to develop the hearts and minds of folks. So, for example, if we have a lab tech with great hard skills, but they're not working in an inclusive manner, not well-rounded, not thinking about how they will delight the customer, we don't deem that as success. So soft skills matter. And of course, look, as a pharmaceutical company like Sanofi, a biopharmaceutical company like Sanofi, science-based, skills also matter too. So, we have to double down on STEM, and our STEM teams are focused on making better vaccines and therapeutics that have better outcomes for patients and using better science. But progress doesn't happen without people with a variety of skills and backgrounds in different locations and in different roles. So we have to hire the best minds we can, not only for the success of the company, but the industry at large, and for the continued advancement of health and science and medicine. In order to ensure we are tapping the full pipeline of talent, we need to create opportunities to expose all students to careers in science through hands-on STEM learning and mentoring.
Bernie?
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. Thanks, Chrissy. And my thanks, Chrissy, to you and Michelle and the entire team at NJBIA. It's a unique partnership when people look at business and labor, but we certainly find a lot of common ground, just like this platform here. So I do appreciate it. To build on what Clint was saying a little bit, it kind of led me to the building trades, and where I feel we do lack sometimes in our apprenticeship programs on the soft skills training. Like Clint brought up how in the business community, maybe it's more professed in the college community, but a lot of times when you get to the building trades, it's something that's neglected. And when I started introducing it, and I introduced our tuition reimbursement program, there was a lot of pushback from some of our committee or trustees, like saying, we're electricians, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we're also guests in people's houses every day. That's what we do. We go out, we serve the business community and the customers. Our electricians need to be able to better communicate with them, to better understand their business. And I'm also okay. Sometimes they'll say you're training them to leave the trade. No, if they do leave the trade, great. I created a relationship, and hopefully they'll be thankful for that along the way, and it'll build my business down the road. So I think every organization should have a much stronger stand on essential skills and leadership. It should transcend every level of your organization. Right down, I'll look for mine. From the kid in the classroom should be a leader in his classroom, to the apprentice on the job should lead the apprentices, to the foreman, all the way up the ladder. And it starts with all of us at the top. We have to cultivate that mindset. So I think it's critical. And my thanks to my colleagues, Clint, especially you over at Sanofi. Your organization gives us a ton of work, and for all the work you do at the core of your job. But our membership appreciates the jobs you give us.
Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks. And Aaron?
So, I want to lean on a few of these points, right? Clint talked about sort of the soft skills and the hard skills, and I keep coming back to making sure that the workforce is comfortable with the technology to excel in any of these industries. And I also would echo what Kim Case and R&D Council said in the chat, that I do believe this starts very, very early. She's talking about the K-12 programs that they offer, which are fantastic and people should check out. But we need to meet people where they are, which is really like on this device, right? Like people are communicating generally now, Slack and Teams for work, Zoom for things like this. Some of this is here to stay. We believe that this is, these are transitions in the world that are permanent. And so making sure, like that the electrician understands what does the metaverse mean and how might he or she work in that, in that medium in the future and embracing it. To Bernie's point, like, I hope that you're training people to a point where they feel like they can advance into potentially a new career. But the point is that they feel comfortable when potentially they're given a VR headset and told that they need to work remotely on a project that's 500 miles away, but they're the expert in the hard skills. And if they don't understand how to communicate with those devices, how to operate those devices, that the workforce will be left behind. And we see this in every single industry. On the soft skills of communication, we see a lot of people coming out of universities without great communication skills because they're used to basically text style, DM style communication. And so understanding like what's responsible digital communication that's effective, we believe needs to be taught and practiced. So, we internally use a lot of video recordings, to communicate beyond just text, but I think there are some very practical tools needed so people understand how to engage other people where, the world is used to short form text. If you send somebody a 15-minute video, what are the chances they're going to watch it, or a long email, like some very small but practical steps that, retaining people's attention has changed. And so to be an effective communicator, to be effective in your career, you need to communicate, again, meet people where they are. And so we think that, the skills, those kinds of soft skills need to be deliberately taught so that people understand, like, here's how you're coming across in your Slack chat. Here's where people think you're actually being a jerk when maybe you don't realize it, or you're completely ineffective because you're using this, terminology and people don't understand what that means. So again, on this like tech-enabled piece, I mean, I'm renovating a home right now and we use all the digital tools, and then 20% of the people who are working on the project get it, and 80% of them don't, and they're being left behind. I think that's a disservice to the workforce.
Thank you all, and thank you, Chrissy. You've raised a whole bunch of issues for us all to think about: the essential skills in liberal arts, technology, the changing occupational structure of your industries, the skill needs. Clear that this is a really vital conversation to start and to continue to have. And thank you all for helping to frame what'll come next in this entire initiative. I want to turn to solutions for a minute and get all of your perspectives on where we go from here. And I want to really focus on two themes on solutions and get your thinking. One is, I think we foresee on having the most productive, innovative, skilled workforce in the country. And that's really driven our economic growth historically. And so what can we do as a team of institutions and entities across New Jersey to work together in new ways to build and protect that competitive advantage? And I think closely related, I think we all recognize that we have incredibly significant equity gaps in New Jersey. And as we emerge from this pandemic, how do we work together to close those equity gaps and to make sure that all New Jerseyans have access to the education, training, and careers to help them propel the economy and get economic opportunities for them and their families? So who wants to go first? I'll just open it up and see who wants to jump in. But, where do we go from here? How do we address these kind of combined issues of equity and economic competitiveness? Clint, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one because I got a little bit of passion for it, and I'll try to be as pithy as I can. Look, I think this one is simple. We have to embrace a mindset of being a coalition. And the reason why I say use the mindset of a coalition, look, I'm a retired military officer. I served 21 years in the United States Air Force. And I know in times of conflict throughout my years of service, we went after things as a coalition, as allied forces, in order to achieve an outcome. And so I think we have an opportunity between industry and government and educational institutions to act like a coalition to preserve and protect, our workforce, and preserve and protect the stance that our state has achieved in our country. We can't make venues like this be a one-off. So for me, I think we got to think through, what is our operating cadence? What is the content in which we will discuss? How will we leverage the diverse perspectives of folks from industry and government and educational institution? What is our desired outcome? And set a path forward, looking at key milestones, establishing key process inputs along the way to ensure we are achieving the mission. So I try to be pithy. Hopefully that was pithy enough and impactful enough.
Well, Clint, thank you. I like the concept of the coalition, and I think that is what we are trying to create with this initiative. And we hope that you and others will help frame how we take those steps to build that sustainable coalition. So who wants to jump in next on solutions? Aaron.
I think I would echo some of these points. For some background, I'm an entrepreneur who started a tech company that happened to be in New Jersey, not because of New Jersey, and kind of by accident ended up in this role that's very New Jersey focused. And I am not from like this old guard of, there seems to be, of a lot of people who work together and have done so for what seems like, hundreds of years. And I'm not pointing any fingers here, but there are many organizations that keep doing the same old things. And what I've noticed since I've been in this seat for now about 2 years with Tech United is there seems to be a refresh here of people reaching out to organizations that maybe they didn't used to work with. And I think that's a critical step here because it's a big state. There are many organizations. And so I think the more that we can collaborate as much as possible, that can be a challenging thing to do sometimes. We all have different goals for ourselves. But the more that we can welcome in new audiences, new corporate partners, new university relationships, new folks around the table, I think that is absolutely critical because all too often I see the same old, relatively small group of people getting together, doing the same old sorts of things. And in fact, I think many people here are trying to change that dynamic. And so it's encouraging to hear some of these comments, but I think reaching out to groups you may not normally speak to communities you may not normally speak to and engage, I think is a critical path for how we can drive a future that's more inclusive and equitable and also empowers this workforce of the future.
Aaron, thanks for those points. I think that we are trying to create an inclusive structure here and welcome as many people to be part of this effort as possible. So hope all of you will continue to spread the word. And we are committed to making sure that we have more voices who may not have been at this table historically. So thank you for raising that issue. Kate or Bernie?
Aaron, that does seem to be the case. I don't want you to think I was pointing fingers at anyone on this call in particular. Just culturally, I was referencing it. It does seem like this is a very welcome event. So I appreciate that, but I don't want you to misinterpret what I was saying.
No, not at all. I think we have a moment here coming out of this pandemic to work together to bring new voices to this table, to create the coalition that Clint mentioned. So we are excited to be able to be part of that effort and to help lead where we can with NJBIA and all of you. So Kate or Bernie, where do we go from here in terms of solutions? What can we do together in this moment?
So how about if I jump in, if you don't mind, right here, Bernie, and then you can finish us out. Okay, so, it's interesting, and you actually asked, I think, a couple of questions within a question, so things have come up. But, one of the things I think underpinning it, and in particular, is diversity. We get, right? It's important in life. It's important in culture. It's incredibly important in healthcare, but in all these other industries as well. In healthcare, I like to say that diversity is so important that lives literally depend on it. Because I'm thinking of the countless individuals who enter hospitals and clinics every single day looking for help. And they, include just this melting pot of humanity. And so if you want to best communicate, understand, or treat individuals with the best care possible, it's vital that you see yourself reflected in the healthcare workforce. So, as I look at that, one of the things that's really, I think, come to terms, whether it's race, creed, gender, age, or how you're, differently abled, this change that we've had in the pandemic, where there's been, remote, for example, remote work has really enabled, those with, chronic conditions or, different type of abilities to, engage and work in ways that they never have before. I hope to see that continue. But there's this other side that, I'm looking at as well and thinking, we have to, coalesce, I think, as business and as education, but we also need to look at what are those policy options that are available to increase workforce diversity. And, I don't think that, the state or the federal government are, the architects of what has to happen. I think that the architects are the people that are, engaged in educating and hiring the folks that are educated, but there are a lot of policies and programs that, that different legislators could require, encourage, or fund that would help to increase the diversity of the healthcare workforce. So, take a look at pipeline training. What about a long-term process beginning, with early childhood and continuing with students in the K-12 system? so that we're, taking them, straight on through so that they get into, when they graduate from, high school into, credentialing programs, things that are stackable, things that, continue to, move in so that, maybe at some point you're getting your associate's degrees. I've looked at some really good examples of this. Cybersecurity has become such a heightened area of interest in healthcare, but in all sectors, particularly during this pandemic. And I've seen, some folks go to school and get like a 4-credit cybersecurity, certificate, and that's something that's stackable. They can move it along the pipeline and move into getting something that's, IT leadership or, something further in the security field. Just as an example, the other thing that we're seeing is that underrepresented young people, they're not prepared to enter into a health professions training. And this might have to do really with the STEM side, because they're lacking the math, the science, and the study skills because of, the challenges that they have within their own environments. This gets to the issues of, where you live matters. We say often that from, health comes wealth. And the reason for it is if you're living in a community that's disadvantaged to begin with, you're underserved, you're stressed, and your focus isn't necessarily on the education piece. So we also know that underrepresented students need to receive supports and probably need them in different ways. And then there are other things I think that we could look at, and that includes, what we do in terms of, providing loan repayments. How do we create right teams? And we're having that conversation today. What do we do to create teams that are, focused on all the different skills and experiences that bring about culturally competent workforces, so that we don't just have somebody that checks a box, but that their voice is open, heard, and helping to engage and change how we think about things. And that gets to maybe that entrepreneurial skill set of where, you fail fast, you fail often, but you also succeed because you take those learnings on. And that only happens where we bring in these different types of voices. So, I see this big role that's evolving. I think it's education, it's, those that employ, and then it's the legislators coming together with that type of funding to help support these types of initiatives. And truthfully, it all begins with pre-K, continues through K through 12, and then let's start building those stackable credentials. And we've seen some really good examples in the community colleges, and we've been really appreciative, I can say that, from the healthcare workforce perspective.
Thank you, Kathy, for that great perspective. Bernie.
Well, on the lighter side, we got to try to keep people in New Jersey first. All our talents leaving, but that's a whole other panel for Michelle to set up. I do want to build on a couple of things that are brought up. Coalitions that Clint talked about. We pride ourselves on that here. A lot of people think labor, and right away they think it's a confrontational thing. In the building trades community, we depend greatly on private sector growth. We're basically a temporary employment agency. That's all our members are. If New Jersey's not successful, if the region's not successful, we're not successful. So we got to come together as a coalition there. With regards to, diversity, more inclusion, I'll use the topic in the building trades. Probably the most underrepresented force in the building trades are females, and I could certainly point to the social aspect of it. Do parents really push their young daughter to go there? Guidance counselors, do they do it? But sometimes you also have to take a critical self-assessment of yourself when you look at these things and say, what can I do differently? So it's a lot about coalition still, but sometimes I think it's a lot about us looking inward at ourselves and saying, have I taken additional steps to make improvements in that part? And I do agree with partnerships in general. Our county college system is great. Big shout out to Tony Iacono in my county up here in Morris County, does a great job. Union County I've worked with before, and even our four-year institutions. We have a partnership for a BA in construction management with Rowan University that a lot of our members have taken advantage of. And again, it's about providing different pathways, and it doesn't just have to be college. It could be stackable credentials, but we have to make better awareness, whatever path we use to get that out to our younger generation of where they can go with their career.
So, Aaron, as we start to close up this great panel discussion, we have an opportunity here today because we do have our education partners on, participating. Our state policymakers are on, our labor colleagues, in addition to both some of our smallest employers up to the largest corporations in the state. As I look at those who are participating, nearly 300 people right now. To our panelists, if you had to give a piece of advice, for us to move forward effectively, what would you say to our education partners, to the business community, and to our policymakers? What is that piece of advice to give? And I know, Kathy, you mentioned you started going in this direction, and certainly started asking the question I was going to try to conclude with, but would love to hear more. What's your parting thoughts on, what can we take away from this in all of our various sectors, including our trade associations who are on as well from many different industries, including construction, manufacturing, healthcare, technology. So anybody want to jump in?
I'll jump in and say, look, I think some of this has been said. We got to work together. We have to have what I call imagination breakthroughs. So reimagine things. As we journey forward, we have to align on what outcomes we expect and leverage the different perspectives, the different exposure and experience of the coalition.
I'll go next. I would say on a high level to embrace and empower the inevitable. And what I mean by that is, as one example, New Jersey receives the top three markets for venture capital are basically New York, Boston, and California. Everybody else. We'll talk about our jump from fifth place to seventh place, but the absolute dollars are very, very small going here. So just using that one example, we recently talked about dropping any capital gains taxes on we can incentivize investment capital from venture capitalists who are ignoring the region because we give them outsized returns. That's one of the what I think are empowerment initiatives that we should be talking about. How do we also bring we've got to in his industry, young people understand that this is where this industry is going and that we can create a workforce that can empower them to be successful. How do we connect them with the corporate community? So there isn't like unfortunately, there's not one thing, but I think if we can create a culture where we are training people to where the ball is going, we're attracting capital in a way that's has an outsized advantage in this region, because currently we absolutely do not. And then we create a culture where failure is celebrated. I think that we're on a path to something much greater.
Chrissy, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and give a shout out to my good friend Jill Schiff, because she's jumping on the whole women in construction thing. But in all seriousness, she's with the ACCNJ, and she runs the Construction Industry Career Day. It's open to high schools. There's also a session that's open to the public. And the website for that is cicdnj.org, and that's in the chat if anybody wants to look for that. And don't hesitate to reach out to me or Jill with any questions.
Bernie, I'm a little disappointed. There's so many shout outs. I didn't get one yet.
All right, Aaron. We'll do lunch tomorrow, and I'll apologize then.
Go ahead.
So I would say, I kind of agree with what everybody's saying here. And one of the things that, as we look to sort of maintain New Jersey's competitive advantage is, this piece that you keep getting around investments, whether, we invest in different ways, whether it's and it's interesting because as we look at healthcare, healthcare is not just about what we do clinically or what we do to focus on on care for the person. There's this whole other series of operations, the back room processing of things that keeps the system moving, or what I like to say, the business side of healthcare. So it's interesting. I think we've heard about the need to be entrepreneurial. We've heard we haven't maybe used that word leadership, but it takes place in so many ways, and we've got to be thinking about what are the types of mentorships that we create, and we create also in different spaces in healthcare. And just an example, I was thinking back to when the pandemic first began for us in New Jersey back in March and April 2020, when we hit this incredibly high peak. And at a time, this is so strange when I think about it, where there weren't really tests. When we started in March of 2020, the U.S. hadn't even signed on to the tests the rest of the world was using. We're still creating our own. There were challenges with it, so there weren't tests. You might remember the long lines that sat there. We had sick patients coming in. There were no proven therapeutics. This is like healthcare. That's a space where you don't fail early and fail often because lives are at stake. And yet we started to push. We started to innovate. And I was thinking about some of the things that took place. So kind of want to go to the construction side for a minute, Bernie. And I thought about, what those that did in facility management, the big and crucial role they played. Because we all of a sudden had 8,300 patients in beds, and seen numbers like that in New Jersey since probably the last pandemic in 1918. So they came through and they started thinking about it. And we were learning just how infectious COVID was. And so the facility management teams came together and they re-envisioned. They said, look, if we've got to maximize staff rather than and maximize our use of PPE, we've got to stop, staff walking to each and every room to check on monitors. So they came up with the idea to remove the doors from the rooms. They hung this plastic sheeting. They ran the lines for all the monitoring equipment to the hallway so that you could actually centralize your review, reducing then the staff that was required and also reducing the utilization of PPE. That's leadership. That's entrepreneurialism. That's something that can be taught. And so when we say that it can be taught and it can be mentored, it's something across all the fields, whether it is within, and I think this is really important, within the clinical space and the hard science space, or into some of the other functions that actually run the business of a hospital. And so when I look at it, I think that, as we're talking about some of these other policy things that I already jumped on, I'd also make this pitch that we've got to be thinking about how do you mentor and how do you take these case studies of, reaping ahead and actually creating that sort of change and doing so in a way that, took the lessons learned from the failures, incorporated them. That all to me is a big piece of where I think education could go. And that's also to me, one of those stackable credentials that we haven't really talked about, but is one of those skills I think can be taught to.
Great, Aaron, I'll turn it back to you, but I do want to just mention one thing quickly also. I think, Kathy, you were touching upon it, is the importance of experiential learning as we move forward as well, and ensuring that we have that connection between the employer community as well as our academic partners, and how do we get that on-the-job training moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Chrissy. And I just want to, on behalf of all of us who are here today, thank our incredible panel. Thank you, Clint, Kathy, Bernie, Aaron, for being with us this morning and offering us some really important thoughts about the changing world that we live in and what we need to do to create that coalition that Clint talked about to address challenges, expand economic opportunity for everyone. We look forward to working with all of you. Thank you for your leadership, your vision, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to transition to the heart of the program. I think that we have a lot to think about based on those four incredible visionary thinkers. And so I'm going to first turn it to President Don Borden. President Borden is the chair of the Community College Presidents this year and an important leader in community colleges. President Borden is going to share his thoughts with us on the community college perspective on this initiative and where we go from here in this effort. So President Borden.
Okay, am I unmuted now? I'm unmuted. The host is allowing me to unmute. Okay.
Thank you for being here,
President. Thanks for taking that picture down. I look a little bit too cavalier there for this, the importance of this discussion. I didn't know that was going to be posted. I'll apologize ahead of time to everybody. It is certainly my honor to represent my community college colleagues here this morning in this important conversation. as Aaron said, in his introduction, we're very proud to be part of this partnership with NJBIA and get this conversation moving forward. I think as a sector, we've been partnership centered and are excited to be able to move this agenda forward and expand on that philosophy. I loved Clint's use of the word or the term coalition. I think that's so critical in terms of our future success in this regard. Collectively, we're very appreciative of the legislative and governor's support in this regard. I know our college, Camden County College, is extremely excited to play a key role in this initiative, and I'm sure just based on the energy here that is probably evident throughout the state. A number of our plenary speakers discussed the overnight changes brought on by the pandemic, terms like unprecedented, right? So it seems obvious to me that the need to work collaboratively to address these incredibly different needs confronting our new normal just really is a great impetus for the rest of the conversation today and to start us moving forward. I think we all recognize our interconnectedness and the importance of working together. Certainly this, again, I think fits seamlessly with the mission of community colleges: access, equity, retraining adults, to re-enter or to improve their status in the work world, the idea of stackable credentials leading to degree opportunities. I think we all need to commit to a need-driven approach, right? What are the needs? And they change on an almost any more monthly basis. And I think the more we're in communication and the more we understand what those needs are, the better we're able to be collectively to address them. And again, partnership driven to create pipelines from high schools. We've all talked about the need to include high schools in this conversation, through higher ed to the workforce. I can speak again on behalf of my 17 colleagues that we are prepared and ready to help New Jersey address workforce needs and really look forward to expanding this conversation and working with all of you to do just that. We all know we can do better. I mean, that was very clear in everybody's conversations. We can do better. What better opportunity for us at this difficult time when we focus on so many negative things, confronting all of us on a daily basis? What a great thing to look forward to collaboratively addressing. So, Aaron, I thank you for this opportunity to speak and certainly look forward to hopefully meeting some of you face to face at some point in time.
Thank you, President Borton. Thank you for those welcoming remarks on behalf of your community college president colleagues and behalf of the council. As you said, we have a really an important moment here, given all of the challenges, opportunities that were raised by our panelists and by Michelle's opening remarks to really work together. We are prepared to launch this initiative today, working with all of you. So what I'd like to do now is to provide all of you with a short overview of this important initiative. Some of you may have heard this presentation before, and so I apologize to start, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page of where we go from here. After I do a short presentation, we are going to break into 4 industry-specific breakout groups to continue the conversation with some additional panel speakers and to really dive into the changing needs of the 4 industries that we feel really undergird our state's economy. So again, this initiative is a partnership between New Jersey's community colleges and NJBIA, and we hope that it will be a broad and inclusive partnership that includes all of you here and many others working together in new ways. I think Aaron Price's point is a really important one. We have to find ways to bring new voices, new partners to the table. As President Borton said, we have prided ourselves in community colleges as being partner organizations, and we are going to redouble our effort with all of you to use this initiative to build that stronger economy and expand economic opportunity. Next slide. So again, we believe that we can only do this important work if we all work together. And so we are excited by the diversity of organizations that are represented here today: businesses, industry associations, labor unions, workforce development boards, all levels of education, community-based organization, state government partners, private career schools, four-year colleges and universities, vocational technical schools, adult literacy training providers. We all believe that we need to find a way to work together in an inclusive way. And we are committed to that as a core principle of this entire initiative. Next slide. So we heard from our panelists just how much the pandemic has transformed our economy and our state. And as we emerge, we hope, from this pandemic permanently and emerge into a new normal, a new way of living and doing business. I think we all heard from the panelists really an urgent need to make sure that we are better coordinating all of our workforce and education efforts in an ecosystem that allows us to work together, to share information, to understand the changing needs of the economy, and then to work together to respond to those needs. This initiative is really focused on building pathways, and you hear that word. We'll talk about it a lot today, and I'll talk more about what that really means. But really, it is working together to make sure that we have the stackable pathways that allow individuals to go from high school to community college to four-year colleges, to come in and out in off-ramps and on-ramps, to get an honored, to have honor for training that comes from other places, prior learning assessments. Again, it's to develop a skilled workforce that can adapt to this changing economy. And we also need to continue to remember that there are many adults in New Jersey who are going to need opportunities to come back to school or education to get new skills and careers. And while we're focusing on making sure that the next generation of workers in New Jersey, our younger New Jerseyans, have educational opportunities, we can't forget that a sizable part of our workforce now and in the future are people who are currently in the workforce. Next slide. So this initiative has two important components. The first are the statewide inclusive collaboratives focused on 4 industries. And the second part of the initiative are the establishment of centers of workforce innovation focused on 10 subsectors of the economy. I'll talk more about each of these, but the collaboratives are statewide. They're focused on getting better information on the changing needs of employers and building the ecosystem, the talent ecosystem, to allow all of us to work together in new ways. The Centers of Workforce Innovation will be led by community colleges and other partners to create new and aligned and enhanced curriculum that will be shared across the state to make sure that we are meeting this moment, that we are continuing to evolve and to innovate to make sure that we are building those pathways for more individuals. Again, we are taking a pathways framework to this entire initiative, and a number of our speakers mentioned the concept of stackable credentials, stackability, the idea that individuals can obtain education and continue to move up the career ladder throughout their lives, that they've got on-ramps and off-ramps to further education, that there is alignment between what a student might learn in high school and what they may learn in college. There's connections between community-based organizations that are providing training that allow individuals who get training from community-based organizations or private career schools to come into college and get credit for those experiences and to continue to build education, credentials, and skills to allow them to continue to move up, to continue to move forward their career. And this concept of pathways really allows us to do a wide variety of things. On the next slide, please. So we are very interested in this initiative in building high school to post-secondary education pathways through expanded dual enrollment models with our post-secondary vocational technical partners and our comprehensive high schools. We are committed to building more transfer pathways for community college students to be able to seamlessly transfer to a 4-year college and university and get additional education. We are very interested and committed to working with community-based organizations to make sure that their training programs are connected to post-secondary education and credential pathways. Contextualize adult basic education literacy programs for those individuals who don't have a high school diploma or who lack the basic skills that are necessary to get them on a path to a credential. Contextualizing those experiences is an important part of this effort. We mentioned work-based learning. There is a great emphasis on apprenticeship programs now, and we believe that apprenticeships are an incredibly important model of work-based learning that leads to industry-valued credentials and allow for additional education and training. And so apprenticeships are an important part of the puzzle here. We believe there's a huge opportunity to leverage the state and federal financial aid programs, including the New Jersey Community College Opportunity Grant Program, to help individuals get the post-secondary education training that they need. Prior learning assessments are critically important because many adults have obtained education and training from other places, the military, from private career schools, from their work. And we are committed through this effort to find new ways of expanding prior learning assessments so that more individuals can accelerate their path to a credential or a degree. And again, it's important for all of us to think about how we work with incumbent workers, people who are currently working with employers to help them upgrade the skills of their employees. So by taking a pathway framework, all of these 8 boxes and many other aspects of the pathway system really can be prioritized and honored and advanced. So we are focusing on, as many of you know, 4 industries that we believe undergird the state's economy: health services, technology and innovation, infrastructure and energy, manufacturing, and supply chain management. Those 4 industries are the focus of our statewide inclusive collaboratives. Nested under those 4 industries are the 10 centers of workforce innovation that we are establishing: patient care, healthcare technology and administration in health services, data science, cybersecurity, programming and software development, research and development in technology and innovation, in infrastructure and energy, renewable energy, and construction, and in manufacturing and supply chain management, manufacturing, production and engineering, and supply chain logistics. So the 4 industries were selected based on an analysis of labor market data and input from many of you here today, and from NJBIA and other sources. We believe that these 4 industries are really the backbone of New Jersey's economy. The industries themselves, the occupations in them, make up at least 1/3 of all actual employment in New Jersey in 2018, and these occupations are expected to grow at a faster rate than the economy as a whole. We also believe that these 4 industries provide unique opportunities for the building of stackable credentials, because they offer occupational opportunities at a variety of levels. So we believe that these 4 industries are really a great target of opportunity, a backbone of our economy, and an area for really advancement and innovation. So you can see here the collaboratives. Again, the statewide inclusive groups. Each of the collaboratives will be led by an industry leadership team of 10 to 12 industry leaders who will meet quarterly to guide this entire effort. The dialogue that we began this morning, we hope will continue and accelerate as we move into this next phase and establish the industry leadership teams to meet and to guide this work. The second half of the collaboratives are the education ecosystem partners. And so we ask all of you to consider joining one or all of our collaboratives. The collaboratives will meet monthly, bringing together those ecosystem partners on a monthly basis to continue and to illuminate and to advance the dialogue that we had this morning about the changing needs of the economy and the solutions that we all can work together to achieve. So we welcome any and all partners to join the collaboratives and to be part of those monthly discussions that will start virtually, but we hope at some point will be in person. The goals of the collaboratives are really to get better information about the changing needs of the economy, and then to translate that into discussions in the building of a robust and inclusive ecosystem of partners to develop solutions. Each of the collaboratives will be developing a strategic workforce plan based on input of employers and extensive analysis of labor market data. We are proud to be partnering with the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development and their Office of Research and Information to make sure that we are using their cutting edge data to drive this work. And we're proud to be partnering with Focus New Jersey an innovative think tank research entity connected to NJBIA that has done some incredible research on the changing needs of the economy and will continue to do this throughout this initiative. So we'll be preparing an inventory of programs and facilities. We'll be identifying labor market demand and industry valued credentials in the 4 industries, developing detailed career pathway maps, and then disseminating that information widely to make sure that not only all of us in this initiative, but job seekers and students have access to better and improved labor market information to guide their decisions about their education and training and career pathways. The Centers of Workforce Innovation are a critical source of work in this initiative. Each center will be led by 2 to 4 community college partners working with a four-year college and university partner, high school partners, and partners from private career schools, adult literacy providers, and community-based training providers. This is where the heart of the work will happen in this initiative. Each of the centers will be guided by industry action teams that will include employers, industry associations, labor unions that will be working closely with our teams to develop new, aligned, and improved existing curriculum that extends from high school to community college to four-year colleges and universities, that's inclusive of career-based organizations and private career schools. Priority is going to be given to industry valued credentials and how do we ensure that more students at all levels have the opportunity to obtain those credentials. The commitment here is to share the curriculum. Anything that is developed through the centers will be shared widely across the state with all partners. And the centers will be providing professional development for faculty and teachers to make sure that the innovations that are developed by the centers are shared widely so that we are lifting the entire education and training ecosystem through this initiative. We will be developing transfer agreements, including dual enrollment agreements between high schools and community colleges, 1+1 agreements among our community colleges, and 2+2 and 3+1 agreements with our four-year institution partners to ensure that we have those seamless pathways. We'll be piloting prior learning assessment solutions and piloting the implementation of new curriculum that will be developed. So the centers, the 10 centers will be the center of much of the innovative work that happens in this initiative. Proud to say that all 18 community colleges have agreed to provide a leadership role in at least one of the centers. So in health services, we have 5 colleges working together in patient care: Bergen Community College, Mercer County Community College, Passaic County Community College, and Rowan College, South Jersey, and Union County College. So 5 colleges in patient care. In healthcare tech and administration, Atlantic Cape Community College, Brookdale Community College, Camden County College, Essex County College, and Warren County Community College. We have 5 colleges working in each of the health services industry centers of workforce innovation because of how large this industry is and how it affects all of us in so many ways. In innovation technology industry, in data science, proud that Brookdale Community College, Camden County College, Middlesex College, Camden County College of Morris will be working together to lead the work in data science. In cybersecurity, Ocean County College, Raritan Valley Community College, and Rowan College at Burlington County. In programming and software development, Essex County College, Middlesex College, and in research and development, Bergen Community College, Middlesex College, Ocean County College, and Warren County Community College. In the 2 other industries, I'm happy to announce today that in infrastructure and energy, in renewable energy, Atlantic Cape Community College, Bergen Community College, and Rowan College of South Jersey will be working together in renewable energy. In construction, Hudson County Community College and Rowan College of South Jersey will be working together in that industry sector. In manufacturing and supply chain management, happy to say that in manufacturing and production engineering, Camden County College, County College of Morris, Raritan Valley Community College, Sussex County Community College will be working together. And finally, in supply chain management and logistics, Hudson County Community College, Rowan College at Burlington County, Salem Community College, and Union County College will be working together. In the next few months, those colleges will be working to develop action plans and bringing in four-year college, high school, and other partners to join their work and to be really the innovation that propels this initiative forward. So excited to be able to announce those colleges that will be leading our work in the Centers of Workforce Innovation, and look forward to working with all of you to advance their important work. So finally, it's important that we define success and that we focus on what it means to be successful in this initiative. So in the collaboratives, we are committed to engaging as many education ecosystem partners as possible, to being as inclusive as possible, to bringing in new partners to work together to create that ecosystem, that place for conversation, collaboration, and new ideas to come together. Clearly, a big part of the collaboratives is getting better information to all of you on current and prospective industry trends and needs, to make sure that we are all doing a better job of aligning the education and training that we offer to the changing needs of the economy. The education and workforce plans will be an important deliverable of this effort, giving us all a blueprint of how we continue to do this work to make sure that education is connected to and aligned with industry needs statewide. And we are hoping and planning that substantial partnerships will arise through this work, in interesting partnerships and collaborations and coalitions that we could not imagine at this moment will come together, because we are bringing people together in new ways, bringing partners and encouraging conversation and collaboration. And finally, ensuring that better career information is available to job seekers and students. The Centers of Workforce Innovation, defining success. Clearly, the centers will be working to make sure that we are developing that new and enhanced curriculum aligned with the needs of the changing economy. And that will be the main deliverable, will be those curriculum models, as well as those statewide partnership models that can be adopted across the state as well, to build stronger connections between the education and training ecosystem. The professional development of statewide faculty, teachers, and staff is also a critical milestone in this effort. Again, the commitment here is to make sure that the work that is done by the centers are widely shared across the state, so that we are all benefiting from this important work. And we are expecting that we will be assessing industry valued credentials to allow for credit transitions, that will be piloting some training and education programs that are developed through the centers, and that we will be completing year-end reports that we can submit to all of you, so everyone knows clearly what has been accomplished and where we go from here. So again, we are committed to using this opportunity, to seizing this opportunity to work together in new ways, to better understand the changing needs of the economy and creating the ecosystems of partnerships. We believe, again, that if we do this work right, that we will be able to bring together a whole host of other initiatives and to help strengthen and support a lot of good work that is currently going on in a lot of different places in the education and training ecosystem. We expect that we will be able to expand dual enrollment programs that help more high school students get college credit so that they're on a path to a post-secondary degree. We expect that we will be able to use the pathways developed to help individuals with developmental disabilities get on a path to jobs and careers. We expect that we will be able to strengthen the connections between non-credit and credit programs at community colleges and four-year colleges to make sure that there are transitions, and that we're expanding the use of prior learning assessments. We expect that apprenticeships will be a major part of this initiative, and that will allow us to develop sustainable apprenticeship models that allow us to honor the value of the work and learn model aligned to the needs of employers. We're committed to building an experiential learning platform to help expand work-based learning opportunities for New Jerseyans. We're committed to building stronger partnerships between community colleges and four-year college partners, building on the solid foundation of transfer agreements that currently that exist in our state. And we are committed to building pathways for adults who need literacy assistance so they can get on a path to a post-secondary credential. So we believe that there is an incredible opportunity here to use the energy in this virtual meeting today to work together to find new models to build those important pathways to expand economic mobility, to address the all too persistent equity gaps in New Jersey, and that we're building that skilled workforce that propels economic growth now and into the future. So we hope that all of you will join with us and work with us in this effort. So now we're going to transition to industry-specific breakout sessions. All of you will be asked to choose one of the 4 industries that you would like to join for a discussion. We will have panel presentations and have some questions and answers, but we ask that you all choose one of the 4 industries based on your areas of interest, and look forward to an hour-long discussion and breakouts, and then we will come back to do some final wrap-up. The discussions that we will have in these breakout sessions will really be the beginning of our work to establish statewide collaboratives. The monthly meetings that we will have of the collaboratives will continue and illuminate and advance many of the ideas and points that get raised today, and look forward to continuing this conversation through this entire initiative. So please join a breakout room of your choice, and look forward to those discussions, and looking forward to being all back for some closing remarks in about an hour.
Welcome, everyone that's here right now. Just a reminder, if you go to the right-hand corner of your screen and choose speaker view or standard view, that will allow you to see the speakers of the panelists, large in the screen when we get to that point. We're just going to hold off on a few minutes while folks are still transitioning over.
Recording in progress.
Thanks, Bill, for adding that to the chat. That was some great information that you had shared in the main panel. Thank you. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes. Bear with us as we navigate getting everybody in the proper rooms. While we're waiting, I'll just go over a few housekeeping items. This way we'll save some time and when we get everybody set up in here. First, we ask everyone remain muted. I think I see everyone is muted. Maybe there's a few that are not. We do ask you to stay muted. We also encourage everyone to use the chat feature for questions and comments. As time permits, we will be getting to some of the chat comments, but we also are hoping that in addition to any comments you have specific to the speakers' responses, we're looking for your responses to the questions as well. Your feedback, your perspective will all be, if not addressed today, will be addressed as the collaboratives begin meeting in the future. We also are going to start receiving warnings as we get closer to the end of the session. So just be aware, we'll get a 10-minute warning and then a 3-minute warning. So we don't want to interrupt anyone as they're in mid-thought. So we'll be mindful of when we're going to automatically get put into that main session. And then just as a final reminder, have your viewing setting to speaker view so that you can see the facilitators and the panelists once we get everybody pinned properly. So just bear with us as our folks are going through that process.
All right, good morning, everybody, again. I think we're still moving people into this breakout room, so give us a few minutes, but thank you for agreeing to join this breakout. I'm very excited for this discussion and would like to introduce Stephanie Staub. Stephanie, if you have not introduced yourself, why don't you go ahead and then we will jump into today's exciting discussion.
Absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. So I'm Stephanie Staub, and I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Energy Sector with the New Jersey Pathways Initiative. I'm very happy to be here. Glad that all of you can join us today. I see we're up to 57 participants. That's terrific. I know we've got a great variety of folks from all facets that we're looking to join the Pathways Initiative. So I look forward to hearing what your thoughts are today. This is a very exciting initiative, and today's discussion is just the beginning. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. So let me start with some opening framing for this really important industry and then introduce our really exciting panel who is with us today. And again, I just want to state that while we have some really great panelists, we want to hear from all of you. So the panelists are here to help provide some inspiration and thinking to help frame this initiative, but also to help inspire all of you to offer your suggestions and thoughts. So please use the chat, offer us suggestions. I just want to start with a couple of important points. One is this is obviously, for many reasons, infrastructure and energy is a really critically important industry to New Jersey. And it's one that's going through a lot of transformation. Certainly, the state is committed to a renewable energy future with significant investments in offshore wind, but also a transition to electric vehicles, to a more reliance on solar, more emphasis on energy efficiency. All of that is clearly having and will have major impacts on the workforce and skill needs of our population. And then, obviously, our state really runs on its infrastructure. We are at the core of the very dense Northeast Corridor. We are the most dense state in the country. And the infrastructure, the construction industry and the infrastructure industry really is in many ways the lifeblood of our economy. And now with sizable federal investment in infrastructure that will allow us to hopefully build the Gateway Tunnel and to improve our roads and bridges and public transportation, there's going to be a broad need for new ways of training and educating people. And I think it's important also to note that this is an industry that really is going to require deeper and richer partnerships. Clearly, labor unions in New Jersey play a critically important role in helping prepare people to work both in utilities, energy, and construction industries, and are important partners in this effort, backbone partners in many ways. And we believe there is a huge opportunity to knit together union apprenticeship programs with high school programs, with community college programs, four-year college programs, community-based organization efforts to find new ways to build the pathways that we talked about before. So we are very excited to have 4 excellent speakers with us today to share their observations and perspective and to really kick off this important work in infrastructure and energy. So very happy to say that we have Dexter Hendricks here. He's the Vice President of Community and Citizenship at Turner Construction Company. Dexter, thank you for joining us today. We have Dan Kennedy, who's Senior Director of Environmental and Utility Operations at the Utility and Transportation Contractors Association. Good to see you again, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have Waltasia Monsanto, who's the Manager of Clean Energy Jobs Program at PSE&G Renewables and Energy Solution. Very exciting, Waltasia, to have you here today. And then finally, Nick Responti, who's the Government and Regulatory Affairs Manager of Zeem Solutions, which is a cutting-edge company really on the forefront of thinking in renewable energy. So thank you all again for being with us. I want to start with one broad question that I'll ask each of the panelists. We really want to better understand current future workforce trends and challenges that are going on in the infrastructure and energy industry. And so if you could, we'll go around the 4. If you could just introduce yourself, say something about you and what you do at your organization and company, but really reflect for us on the critical workforce needs that you see in this moment. I mentioned all the transformations that are going on in this industry and these industries, and if you could really share with us some of your critical workforce needs. So why don't we start with Dexter, and we'll go around the panel.
Sure.
Dexter, welcome.
Everyone, and thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Stephanie, and NJ Pathways for your vision to really create equitable pathways to economic opportunity as we think about the workforce of the future. So when I think of, before I get into that, so my name is Dexter Hendricks, Vice President of Community and Citizenship. I've been here at Turner Construction 20 years and 35 years in the industry. I focus on 4 really strategic pillars within my department, which is economic impact, youth engagement, outreach and service, and of course, workforce development. So economic impact deals with our spend with our small businesses, minority-owned businesses. Youth engagement, really making construction a valued career path for our youth. Outreach and service, giving back to our communities. And of course, the reason why we're here, workforce development, really trying to ensure that we have a sustainable process in place for our aging workforce. So when I think of critical workforce needs, I focus on a word critical, and selfishly in construction, critical is the things that keep me up at night. And of course, safety is one of them, right? Making sure that all the workers, leave the job site and go home safely to their families. But not just the workers, is also our people. So as I think about some of our needs, we internally as well as externally really have to get a good handle on this COVID fatigue of our employees. Before long, we had opportunities to get together in person, especially in a construction site where most of our employees are spread out to different sites. We don't get a chance to really collaborate and see each other collectively in one space. And, COVID has prevented us from doing that. So really finding solutions to drive out COVID fatigue of our employees. And a part of that is allowing them to get together. We have had great opportunities in outreach and service and volunteering time that, COVID has kind of restricted that sometimes. So I definitely want to make sure that we take care of our employees. At Turner, we have this theme of active caring, not only for our workers in the field, but for our internal employees as well, too. So I want to make sure that we get a good handle on that. That's one of the things that really keeps me up at night, is the fatigue of our workers in this COVID environment. And they're concerned about a lot of stressors, right? Like childcare and elder care, transportation, working from home, masking, 6 foot, all of the stuff that, quite frankly, is necessary in a construction site as we collaborate in teams, workers work in pairs to do things. And of course, this idea of diversity and inclusion, which is special and important to me, not only internally here at Turner, but as we see the construction industry at a whole. So those are my two biggest needs and what I see as some of the trends and challenges that we have upcoming. So thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Dexter. And we appreciate your company's involvement and you being here with us today. Thank you. Let's stay in infrastructure and go to Dan Kennedy. Dan, as your members are building for the future and helping us do some big projects, what are some of your thoughts that you're hearing in terms of the critical workforce needs that your companies are experiencing in this moment?
Sure, Aaron, thanks. My name is Dan Kennedy. I work for the UTCA. The U stands for utility and the T stands for transportation. We're a longstanding BIA member. We represent employers, but I don't think we've ever engaged with the BIA or through a kind of collaboration like this with the BIA. We typically focus on other issues involving regulation and legislation. So first, Aaron, thank you for inviting us to be a part of it. Stephanie's been great to work with so far. And thanks BIA for having the vision to be a partner in this. Aaron Price said something interesting in the opening about old guard. And I think UTCA is kind of part of that old guard. And we've gone through a process of self-recognition and issued a new strategic plan that's available on our website. However, there's a recognition in our strategic plan that preparing for the future includes not just funding and regulation to accelerate projects, but the workforce. So we've gone through a process at UTCA, and we will be focusing on workforce and investing in this partnership moving forward. We believe in your approach of kind of targeted priority industries. Aaron, you may not be surprised to hear that given our work in the past on the strategic planning for the state. But we need to recognize that the ecosystem of construction goes past just those that are working on the job sites. If you look at 100 jobs in the construction sector, about half of those, a little bit more than half of those jobs are going to be the folks working in the field. The other half are around half are going to be folks that are in the aligned industries. And that's where through COVID, the world has changed tremendously. I think others have said that on the job site, we were focused on safety and training, but as essential, being tagged essential and working the whole time through, really what's changed is, off the job site, how we communicate off the job site, all the tools and techniques. So I think in terms of challenges and needs, we also need to understand that the federal government just authorized $1.2 trillion in new spending. 650 billion of that is in pre-allocated funding, and 550 billion is in, this is nationwide numbers, in new spending. And that new spending is broken between surface transportation, which includes roads and transit, and then new spending, which really diversifies the federal investment historically in New Jersey, bringing in energy and power and broadband. Definitely invest in the classic types of infrastructure like water infrastructure and environmental remediation, but new buckets on resiliency. And what does that mean for construction? Sometimes it means just building things bigger and stronger, and we bid accordingly. But there's going to be more on EV charging stations nationwide, and definitely with our governor's priorities in the letter of the Energy Master Plan, that's going to be something that will manifest itself in construction opportunities. So in terms of needs, number one is making sure that our sector can communicate with each other in the outside world in this more virtual space that's not going away once COVID becomes classified as something we just have to deal with on our normal day. The new types of construction delivery, project delivery that's going to be available, whether that's PPPs, public-private partnerships, design build, joint ventures, that's going to require a lot more communication and partnership between companies. And so our folks have to get ready to be ready for these hybrid concepts for collaboration. But I'll just end, Aaron, in saying that really the project pipeline drives hiring. UTCA represents both union and non-union folks. Our members, a vast majority of them have one or more of the building trades signed. It's not a precondition of our membership to a UTCA. But one thing that's true is that funding and approvals, both public and private, are going to really set the expectations for hiring. And I've heard Greg Olavi say from the operating engineers that it's going to take a little bit of time for this kind of the money to work through the snake and for it to show up on the street. So we do have an opportunity here to work together to start really focusing on all these pathways, not just the limited ones we focus on now. Because when that pipeline, when that kind of funding goes through the snake and it's getting ready to hit the street, we're going to have significant workforce challenges in terms of numbers on delivering these projects. And that's obviously something that should concern all of us.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for being here, and thank you for being kind of an old partner in a new role, in a new way, kind of keeping what Aaron Price said, taking it to heart. So thank you. A lot of work ahead, and glad we're having these conversations now. So I want to turn to kind of the renewable energy side of the equation. We've got two great panelists here who can offer their perspectives on those issues. So first, I want to turn to PSE&G, obviously a critical company in New Jersey in so many ways. Many of us here rely on PSE&G every day, and they are now leading some really interesting thinking around renewables and energy solutions, and very happy to have Waltesia Monsanto here with us today. So Waltesia, let me turn it to you for your thoughts from the perspective of PSE&G.
Of course. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'd like to especially thank the NJCC and NJBIA. Stephanie, thanks for coordinating with me. It's been a pleasure to work with you so far, and I look forward to upcoming discussions. Before I get into the focus of today's discussion, I'd like to share how our Clean Energy Jobs program fits into PSE&G's overall clean energy vision. We call it Powering Progress, which is simply less energy being used, and the energy that is being used is cleaner and delivered more reliably than ever. Our Clean Energy Jobs program helps to attract and train the human resources necessary to help realize that vision. And Aaron, I wanted to point out, I guess so many people, I always start with a moment of levity to say, my name is Waltesia Monsanto.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Quite all right. Anything remotely close, I will answer to. I've been at PSE&G for 20 years now, and Jersey girl, born and raised, and it's been a delightful experience to work in the workforce development space most recently. Our Clean Energy Jobs program is leading a concerted effort to focus on diversity and provide a pathway to training and careers. In order to do this, it's primarily focused on three areas: jobs recruiting, training, and a real focus on diversity. And if you hear those pillars, it should hearken to directly what we're talking about in terms of the Energy Master Plan, as well as our New Jersey Board of Public Utilities board order that was pushed out in 2020, where we are working on equitable ways to provide not only jobs, but long-term careers as it relates to energy efficiency. When you talk about the trends and challenges that we're seeing, there are two in particular that I think are pivotal in order for us to be successful that we need to focus on. One is women. As we think about COVID and the mass exodus of women from the workforce, there's various sources out there like AP and others that point out 3.5 million women left the workforce in 2020. How do we formulate a framework and approach amongst all the different entities that you're highlighting, which I think is great, to be able to provide pathways for them to come back? What does that look like from an education perspective, a training perspective, and a real focus on forging relationships amongst those entities in order to give pathways into clean energy? We're a new space. We recognize that energy efficiency is the way of the future, and we're working to address certain gaps that exist, specifically around upskilling the current workforce. So when you talk about a challenge that we see, it's looking at incumbent workers and determining what transferable skills they might have that would allow them to leverage those skills, feel a sense of confidence that they're working towards something greater, right? And as it relates to energy efficiency, I'm particularly excited to be in this space because I think in light of COVID, so many of us want to work for a greater purpose, right? We've been home for remote work and away from those we love most that aren't in our immediate households. So how do we all work together to say that there is a greater purpose out there in terms of clean energy? Any research that you'll see will point out a need for many individuals to want to save the planet now in light of what's going on. PSE&G recognizes that climate change is here and we need to have a united front in order to address it. So looking at the incumbent workforce, I think, is a key challenge, and then creating creative solutions, working collaboratively in order to upskill the workforce. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Waltazia, and I apologize for the mispronunciation. I will get it right someday.
Quite all right. So you nailed it already.
Okay, well, I'm trying. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
But really appreciate your voice and your company's involvement in this work and helping us transition to that renewable energy future. So great to see PSE&G leading the way. So now let's turn to Nick Responti from Zeem Solutions. Nick's company has been doing a lot of interesting work in renewable energy and has some cutting edge perspectives on where we might be going in the changing renewable energy space. So Nick, let's turn to you for your opening thoughts about your workforce challenges and what you see is ahead for all of us.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Stephanie and yourself for inviting Zeem Solutions to participate on this panel and really in the overall initiative. I'm very excited to be here. Look forward to the continued dialogue and partnership and hearing everyone's perspectives. Good transition following PSE&G, on the renewable side. So again, my name is Nick Responti, Government and Regulatory Affairs Manager at Zeem Solutions. Just to provide some context about the company before we get into workforce needs. Real briefly, we build and operate zero emission vehicle depots that are reshaping the movement of goods, services, and people to have a more positive impact on the environment and local communities. Our goal is to transform the way fleets operate medium and heavy duty vehicles by providing at our depots, we provide leasing, parking, maintenance, charging, energy storage, grid services, and all using zero emission commercial vehicles at these shared depot facilities. We consider ourselves really a conduit, as you mentioned, the transforming economy to the clean energy economy, right? With a focus on facilitating and enabling the transition, providing access to zero emission mobility for particularly small and medium fleets who will have a hard time doing that. So they can realize economic savings and the environmental benefits associated with that. at our depot facilities. So currently, we have a few operations in Southern California, and this really is a great opportunity for us to be a part of this panel because we are looking to expand operations in New Jersey and New York. We're really following the policy landscape that is more favorable for zero emission mobility, commercial electric vehicles. So obviously California is at the forefront. So we have a few operations and growing there, and New Jersey and New York, particularly New Jersey is where we're stepping next. And we're very excited to do that. I am also a born and bred New Jersey resident, so happy to get this company up and running in the state here. But at our depots, we already and will continue to supply training, education, and workforce development, right? It's a nascent industry, so we're going to need to have a lot of hands-on training, and partnerships like this will be incredibly beneficial for us. But, we want to provide those programs for existing or new businesses, mechanics, technicians, as well as fleet operators and managers in adopting zero emission vehicles and moving away from fossil fuels. But our critical workforce development need really at this point is to identify and train, employees in the clean energy, technicians and mechanics. We are developing our own training programs with the combination of on-the-job and classroom training in California. But right now, are some of our biggest challenges are, having this pipeline of applicants and partners to work with, whether it be community colleges or back to work programs or government partners or other industry stakeholders. We really need that collaborative and collective effort that I think this opportunity presents to develop and finalize and make some of our training programs align with other programs and make things a little more official.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you to all of our panelists for some opening remarks that I think help orient this whole conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Staub, who said hello earlier. Stephanie is the director who is leading our work on this Pathways Initiative in this important industry. She'll be leading the collaborative and supporting the work of the two centers. Stephanie will put her email in the chat, so please feel free to follow up with her. But Stephanie, turn over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. So thank you all for being here. Tazia, Dexter, Dan, and Nick, your perspective is very important and interesting. So I want to ask a couple of questions that are kind of in the theme of hiring needs, right? So we heard in the main panel, Bernie talking about, them looking to incorporate training with CAD and BIM, right? So technology is moving in that direction. We've heard, lots of discussion about soft skills. So when you're looking at hiring, what gaps are there? Tazia, you mentioned some gaps in training incumbent workers, but what are the skills gaps? What are the credentials that you're looking for? We talked about the stackable credentials as you move along the pathway. So looking along your pathway, not just focusing on one specific spot, but what are those gaps and what are those credentials that you're looking for? And we'll go ladies first this time. So Tazia.
Thanks, Stephanie. So I would say, as it relates to skills gaps, as I mentioned before, since energy efficiency is new in this landscape, we start with transferable skills. And we've started to parse it out in three different ways. One is interpersonal skills, right? What are the interpersonal skills you already have today around customer service, organization, professionalism, right? Those basic skills that allow you to work in a workplace and be successful. And then we go into the technical realm. Technical is one in which we parse out in two different ways. One are those technical skills that allow you to communicate using technology, right? Especially in light of us doing more remote work. So as it relates to your basic Microsoft Office suite, being able to send emails, knowing how to do basic numeric calculations and functions becomes pivotal in almost all the jobs that we're interested in moving forward with. And then in parallel to that, what are those more technical skills that you need in relation to the specific job that you're doing? As it relates to the clean energy sector, we have roles like field technicians, outreach professionals that need to understand more about energy efficiency. We are offering certain training courses, and I know we'll talk more about solutions later, right? But it's important for us that we link up certain skills that individuals have today related to potentially, if you've done roofing, HVAC, right? If you have those hands-on skills, chances are we would be able to have those skills and pair them up and say you can leverage those as transferable skills as a pathway into these clean energy or energy efficiency jobs. The other thing I want to mention that seems more basic, but is pivotal as we talk to people who might have been home and more reclusive and not interacting with others are those basic skills to present your best self in terms of being a self-starter, having a good attitude. As we talk about more remote work, more hybrid work, demonstrating the ability to be a self-starter and have that ambition and allowing the employer to view you as someone they can trust to go throughout your day with not as much supervision as you might have had if you were in a traditional work environment becomes paramount.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, I want to remind everybody, we are interested in hearing your perspectives on all this as well. So please do use that chat feature. Altazia, that was terrific. Thank you. Dexter, how are those skills gaps along the career pathways that you're looking at, and what are the credentials that you look for in your employees?
So thanks, Stephanie. And I definitely think that there's some synergies between Waltazia's response and mine. Sorry about that here. But so I'd like to talk about two things. I definitely think that the interpersonal soft skills is still a little bit of a gap. I know our new hires have a pretty good handle on technology. I mean, they're coming up with BIM awareness, VDC, VR, 3D printing is all in their sweet spot. But unfortunately, we are dealing with a construction workforce that's aging, and not all of them are up to speed in technology. So sometimes there's a little bit of a communication gap between those that have full grasp of technology and those that don't, right? And that's internally as well as within our company. We have some new hires that are out in the field, and a lot of change since I was in the field, 25 years ago. I remember lugging huge sets of drawings up 4 flights of stairs and things, and now folks have a cell phone or iPad or something in that, and doing all of that. So really working on those communication, those soft skills to make sure that information is transferred in a way such that it's an open conversation and not adversarial or in some kind of confrontational. So I think that's important. And the second thing is going back to something that I'm passionate about is the diversity aspect of it too as well too. So I think we collectively have to do a better job of making sure that we introduce the career opportunities in construction at a much earlier age, middle school, even K through 12, to make sure that females know that they can be carpenters, they can be engineers, as well as people of color understanding that the pathway to success is not necessarily through a traditional 4-year college. And that's one of the reasons why this program really excited me, because you have creative ways of really putting together those stackable credentials to define what that measure of success is, whether it be through apprenticeship programs, work-based learning programs, military, VOTEC, et cetera, et cetera. So really trying to make sure that that aspect of all that you're doing is getting to a much broader and diverse audience, so that we can be as inclusive as possible, such that that 4th grader or that 8th grader knows that there's a viable path through construction that they can take, whether it be a mechanical engineer or whether it be a carpenter working on a project, electrician, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really, I was really happy to hear those collaborations, those hybrid processes happening. I even heard that some of the BIM information modeling is being introduced in an apprenticeship programs through the electrical unions. And those things are really great to hear as we consider, bridging those gaps between information, technology, aging workforce, as well as diversity.
Excellent. Thank you, Dexter. And you're right. It is so important to have, and that's the greatest thing about this initiative. It is inclusive of everyone everyone involved in workforce development and education and the sharing of that information. So we are able to, get that information and share those pathway models with everyone and really help with that inclusion model. Thank you. Dan, how about your perspective? Are there specific credentials that you look for, specific credentials that, would help address the skills gap?
I'll answer that question, but first I just want to finish up on something Dexter was saying. I don't think we have to worry about our kids in high school with any skills gap on technology and communication. Any of us that have kids in school right now, lived through the last 2 years, they can teach us all something about communicating and getting by in this new world, right? So I think it's more we also need to think about our current workforce. It's probably most of our workforce is, in terms of majority wise, about 50% plus is over 50. And those are the folks, retraining those, that's where I think our focus should lie. On the back end, I'd say one of the things UTCA has done is in a partnership, and I think Jill Schiff is on this, and credit to her organization and her specifically for doing this. Jill, for most of her career, we help with the construction industry advancement program that they kind of are the backbone staff for. And every year we interview 150 or so students in post-secondary community colleges and four-year schools from New Jersey, mostly New Jersey. And most of the skill gaps that we experience by interviewing all those candidates and kind of pre-screen them prior to, and I don't sit on all those interviews, but enough to kind of get a little feel for it. The interpersonal skills are very weak. And that's when the technical skills at that stage that are going through colleges, the candidates that rise to the top are the ones that already have their OSHA certificate for safety. The ones that rise to the top are CAD proficient, GIS proficient, and proficient in those spaces. Oftentimes, they're not going to have their welder's certificate or their electrician's licenses. And those are the type of transferable credentials that, frankly, they would, getting through work and getting through signing with the trade is really kind of a pathway there. I've had the benefit of going to several of the training centers that the trades run. And I'm not going to say one or two because if someone's on the call, I'll be perhaps offending them because I haven't been to all of them. But I tell you, Stephanie, and for Aaron, if you haven't been to some of the training centers that are run by the trades in the state, you should really do a tour. They're very welcoming, and they're really world class, I think. So that's an area where you really have to make sure that the community colleges and the trades, and although the trades are not the only pathway for these credentials, they're a primary way. The trades offer welding certificates and all the things that they need to do to work in the infrastructure space. And that's one of the pathways that we want to see invested in. And one of the pathways our companies have a lot of faith in terms of getting the skilled workforce to them to not only be a number on the job, but do that job efficiently and safely, which is obviously a big concern because you can get the job, but if the job goes sideways money-wise or sideways safety-wise, you could really be out of business in a hurry.
Thanks, Dan. And I agree that the training centers, I've been very fortunate to work with a couple of trades, and they are always the rock stars. It's easy to get folks interested when you're able to see and do with your hands. I think this Pathways Initiative is a terrific way of exposing youth to all of the different careers in construction and in infrastructure and where those paths can lead you to, right? So we know that there's specific trades, but those pathways can take you in a lot of different directions. And so
if I can just say, oftentimes these social goals manifest themselves through a government agency putting a standard in place for contractors to meet. So in some ways, contractors become, liable for not meeting those goals or requirements in contracts, where really it's a societal failure, and contractors cannot overcome the lack of capacity in the workforce for these social objectives to be met. Well, therefore, it's efforts like this that contractors should be, and we are, and others are going to be willing to participate in, because the approach that government has taken in terms of just laying on these goals and standards without any real view of capacity and then just expecting contractors to meet these goals is just not the path forward. So we want to invest in this approach where it's kind of a all pathways approach and government at the table as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Nick, I do want to get to you before just checking on our time. We want to talk about solutions, but what is it when you're going from, to electric vehicles and those mechanics, those technicians, what are the differences? What are the challenges that you're facing with those necessary credentials?
Sure, and that's a good question. Just one point, Dan, I would love to learn more about those training centers at another time, but being respectful here of our time and moving on. So yeah, great question. Going right to the technical side, at a basic level, for students who want to enter and be successful in the electric vehicle industry, on the tech side, they should really concentrate in STEM courses provided at their educational institutions, but more technical, on the more technical side, NFPA 70E electrical safety basics, general industry training in terms of PPE, OSHA 10, or just overall OSHA exposure, manufacturing settings, automotive settings, control of hazardous energy, whether it be changing, charging, or battery storage, process and safety management would all be very important for us, because at our depots we are looking to attract, develop, and retain a local, skilled, and diverse workforce for the electric vehicles themselves, as well as the charging station infrastructure, the maintenance and servicing positions, as well as our other corporate opportunities. So on the technical side, it's very important. I don't want to be redundant, but I agree with all about the soft skills and the transferable skills. Always very appealing in any candidate, including customer relations, communications, problem solving, troubleshooting, really just to support our general facility maintenance and operations. Another thing that wasn't mentioned too, and I'll be quick here, but we are always looking for passion and motivation for all of our employees, and especially to work in this growing zero emission vehicle industry. And to those who are really helping to or interested in facilitating this transition. So motivation, passion, very important for us. And our HR team really has found that the primary gaps are with these entry level candidates.
Excellent. Thank you. So looking at the time, we do want to get into a little bit of some solutions, right? So how we can approach this together. So we know that the involvement of industry in this initiative is critical. Aaron, any perspectives from you on how we go from here with our partners here today and initiate the collaboratives?
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. And we've got so many great comments and thoughts from our panelists. I think maybe we use the next 12 minutes just to go around and hear from each of our panelists really quickly. What do we do here? What do we go? You've heard a lot of good conversation. You know a little bit about the structure of what we're doing. What can we do next to really make sure that we've got that skilled workforce for that changing world that you all are living in? And we just go around the panel, a couple of thoughts. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to continue to put thoughts or questions or issues in the chat. So why don't we start? Dexter, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go around. Where do we go from here? How do we work together going forward, Dexter?
Sure. So before I answer, I do want to give a shout out to my workforce development folks that's on the line, and everybody in that space of workforce development, apprenticeship programs that are doing great work. I support you. I see my good friend Richard Harris is on here, has a great program there in Newark. So and to answer your question, Aaron, I think it's really just, strengthening the partnerships, really working with apprenticeship programs, the labor unions to create that ecosystem, that word that keeps coming back here, this ecosystem of workforce development. Turner Construction, we're involved in a Time for Change consortium that, quite frankly, is made up of a lot of general contractors, some who are our competitors. But I think 2020 has taught us that we all have our due diligence in ensuring that we have fair and equitable practices, not only for businesses to enter into to the industry, but people as well. So we have come together collectively to kind of make sure that we identify what those barriers to entries are as far as businesses, as far as people, to ensure that we do our part in creating this ecosystem and sustaining this ecosystem. And I definitely want to give a shout out to my friend Waltazia from PSE&G, because I think sustainability is a huge part of that as well too. We have to protect the planet, and we have to plan for this changing climate trends that we see, and that trickles down to what we do in construction as well too. Now that when we're looking at projects and we're creating BIM models and stuff like that, we have to take into effect our changing environment and be aware of the sustainable initiatives that we put into our industry as far as construction. So again, shout out to all who's working in this space to make sure that, we do what we need to do to make this apparent for everyone that we have some challenges coming up as relates to workforce, especially in our construction and our aging workforce here. But I think this program, in combination with others, really forming and strengthening those partnerships could definitely be a way to a solution.
Thank you, Dexter. And let's go to Dan. Dan, you've been in and around the government world for a while, and now at UTCA. Where can we go from here to create a new day?
Yeah, I think, Aaron, it's a good point. In government, you see, this recasting of old ideas as new, and I think, this is kind of an old idea here. Getting our younger people to transition into the workforce, and then making sure that our existing workforce can sustain through the changes that are inevitable through a career. So I said some of the lessons you learn from government is, try not to duplicate efforts and step on each other's toes. I think that's, this listening first approach that you're taking is really a good way to approach this. Although there's a lot of legislative and regulatory innovation killers out there that come through government, I think, trying to keep this group of folks that may not agree on everything, focus on workforce and maybe try to keep out some of the legislative and regulatory hurdles that we know that kind of hurt us meeting our mission is probably a smart move. I think we need to broaden the view of what a green job is in the state of New Jersey. Oftentimes it's viewed as some sort of a strictly nonprofit or environmental gig, but we think the state government is evolving through the Green Jobs Council and really starting to view jobs like water infrastructure construction and transit jobs and energy resiliency as all part of a green job. And, we want to be seen in the construction sector as part of the future in the state of New Jersey. And if that's the innovation economy or the core economy that our business presents, then that's a good thing. So, don't duplicate, stick with the coalition approach and agree on as much as we can. And let's understand that infrastructure and energy is essentially a green job, and that we should prioritize in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for your comments. And I'm glad you mentioned that first point, because there is a lot going on in the policy-making space around energy and construction infrastructure that's going to impact some of these issues. We have less control over that. I know you and others are trying to be a voice of from your perspective on those issues, but we do have a lot of control over a lot of things that we do as community colleges, as partners, as four-year colleges and universities, as training partners. So there's a lot that we can do. And our workforce plans that we develop through this initiative, I think, can be a vehicle to highlight some of the other regulatory and legislative changes that could be taken. So great points, Dan. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go back to Waltazia, talk about, where do you think we go from here in terms of next steps, and how do we work together to meet this workforce need?
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron. And thanks, Dexter, for the shout out earlier. We're really excited to be in this space and knowing that it's going to be critical for us to get this right in order to be sustainable in the future. As LaToya commented in the comments, which I was keeping up with, and Dan mentioned youth. I think the younger, the better in terms of creating pathways for them to see what's out there by way of not only jobs, but careers. All too often in our educational system, there is a push, especially in our underserved communities, to think that the only road to success is the 4-way degree, right? And so what we've been doing as part of the Clean Energy Jobs program is actually showing them what the logical progression is from what would be a starting hourly wage, moving through to a salary job, right? That is actually going to build generational wealth for many of these underserved communities, and being able to get that narrative right for the K-2 through 12 and putting visible images in front of those students to let them know what the types of skills are that they need earlier is better. We've been working to partner, and that's why I'm excited to be here today, because I think you're also moving in the direction of building out these frameworks where we need a collaborative effort between vocational schools, community colleges, trade schools, as well as companies like ours, so that we can align the curriculums, right? What we see all too often is that there will be the educational institutions that will build a curriculum, and then there's still a gap that we need to forge in the corporate sector. So I think having conversations like this is part of the solution. In addition to that, Dan mentioned a good point about contractor support. What I'm pleased to talk about as part of this initiative and what we're running at PSE&G is an on-the-job training program. We're looking at individuals who would be interested in clean energy, entry-level jobs inclusive of field technicians, outreach professionals, administrative assistants, where you would come in and go through a 6-month program. We will provide a living wage, and we'll give you the necessary competencies for gainful employment. In order to do this, which key here is we're working with many of the training providers throughout the state to help supplement this program, right? So it's not a standalone. We're also communicating to utilities across the state about what we're doing so we could partner with them and have repeatable processes, all aimed at giving candidates the professional mentorship that we've recognized that they need in order to be successful in this space, giving them that combination of interpersonal skills, job readiness courses, and specific job training is going to be key for us to be successful, regardless of the role that they're in. I listed in the comments our email address to find out more information about that. And we look forward to being able to talk about additional partnerships in the future. So I think that's the main solution here, Aaron, in terms of working together collectively to build out what this ecosystem looks like.
That's really exciting. Thank you for that perspective. And we've got a few minutes, so I'm going to go to Nick for 2 minutes, and then we'll do some wrap up, and then we'll go back to the full group. Nick.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Really from the industry's perspective, as everybody said, collaboration is essential here. And also the fact that we could provide thought leadership about, what we specialize in, our industries, and the related jobs to develop a pipeline of skilled workers, specifically for, this emerging and growing industry to support that growth and expansion of zero emission vehicle deployment in the state. It's an objective of our state government, so it's important to align these objectives. But also, tying together with that, working and engaging directly with municipalities, community groups, other government officials, academia and trade associations to share information, raise awareness, and develop programs for training and curriculum development. And I highlight curriculum development because in our industry, technology, continues to grow very fast, and it's going to be very important to keep the workforce prepared and ready to handle that. Some key areas that our areas of academia could focus on really for the zero emission or battery electric vehicles are the improved battery technology, research and development, manufacturing and production technology, and also the infrastructure technology to support the vehicle deployment. So just some areas that our community colleges could work on, or K through 12 to get the workforce prepared and ready to support this growing industry.
Great, Nick, thank you. So we are almost at time, so I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie for about 1 minute of closing remarks. And again, thank you to our panelists, and look forward to working with all of you. Stephanie.
Great, thanks, Aaron. So I want to just thank Waltesia, Dexter, Dan, and Nick for your candid and insightful contributions. I also want to thank those who offer some perspective over chat. want to encourage you to please reach out to me. I did put my email in the chat. We really are looking to partner. This is great to have so many folks involved in these pathways from the four-year colleges with our community colleges. We have quite a few folks here regarding workforce boards and training and organizations that we really do want to work together on the development of these pathways. It's critical to really talk about specific skills gaps and credentials. And I hope that as the collaboratives move forward, we can get into some very specifics regarding these career pathways. But thank you all for your perspectives today. And I look forward to continuing these conversations in the coming months. So we have just a few more seconds before we're going to get put back into the main area.
Recording stopped.
Oh, sorry. There we go. We're done with our recordings. Thank you all. We have just it's like the countdown for New Year's Eve of getting back into the main room. But with the federal infrastructure funding that's coming from the federal government, we have a lot to prepare for here in New Jersey. So thanks for working with us on that.
Thank you, Stephanie.